Welcome back to another episode of the Technology Alchemist. Our sponsor is your Virtual CTO. Your Virtual CTO is a technology services company specializing in increasing your revenue and profit through a close examination of your technology engine. Your Virtual CTO offers exclusive coaching for business leaders that is the only business coaching program that includes technology as part of the program. If you want to learn how you can make more money by tuning up your technology engine, you can learn more at getyourvirtualcto.com. Now, today, I'm joined by Paul Lima of Lima Consulting. Paul is a trusted advisor to the visionaries and change agents of today, charged with creating the digital futures of tomorrow. In 2004, Paul Lima founded Lima Consulting Group, a multinational consultancy with offices throughout the Americas. Paul's personal mission is to apply innovation to help organizations transform their digital futures. He is the author of the firm's flagship offering, the Digital Transformation Maturity Model, used by Fortune 100 companies and mid-sized businesses alike in strategically applying digital innovations to deliver world-class customer service. And he's also a good friend of mine. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Hey, it's a real pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Glad to have you. So let's start out. Let's talk a little bit about what Lima Consulting does.
We have a mission to really help transform the digital futures of tomorrow. And that manifests in a lot of different ways, and digital transformation means a lot of different things to people. But it's really being able to apply innovation today as it relates to customer experiences.
Nice. So when you say digital transformation, a lot of people don't know what that means. Can you kind of give a brief explanation of what a digital transformation is?
It means a lot of different things to a lot of different folks, depending on where you sit in the world, right? So if you're a technology provider or you're a service provider, or you're providing cloud infrastructure, it's going to mean something different. But the way we think about it is really being able to deploy the people, the processes, the platforms, and all to attain a desired financial performance, right? So that's the expanse of it. So it covers people, process, platforms, and performance. And being able to do that in a way that you're able to leverage your existing models, your business models, so how you make money today, and to be able to envision the future business models. And all of that with the eye towards improving the customer experience. So that's a long-winded way. We have a little definition, and I kind of, gave you the long-winded answer of it. But, when you look at companies that have been doing things for a long time, take Volvo, for example. They've been making engines and cars for an awfully long time. And they've been doing it with, selling a product. And eventually, it got to the point now where, they really evaluated what are some new business models? How are some new ways that we can encourage different types of customer experiences? And now you've probably heard you can rent your Volvo. You can subscribe. You can. It's different than a lease. So now you can subscribe to your Volvo. So there's a great example of, if you think about how do we get from selling engines to subscribing to a Volvo, and what does that mean for the people, process, platforms, and performance? That's the kind of work that we do with organizations to help them reimagine their digital futures.
And what's the biggest challenge you generally face when trying to help an organization do that?
Well, digital transformation and really imagining customer journeys and new experiences that you can provide your customers, it's not really a technical problem. It's a strategy problem. And I think a lot of organizations, what'll happen is the CEO will come downstairs and say, hey, give me a new website. Or, hey, I found a new shiny object at a conference I was recently attending. And being able to put that in a model and in context and build a business case and really understand in a methodical and disciplined way, how are we going to do this? How are we going to think big and really take a website redesign or the insistence of a senior leader to deploy a marketing automation tool? How are we going to take that and say, okay, got it, boss, we're going to do that. But to begin thinking bigger. And I think a lot of organizations are almost scared to say customer journey or digital transformation, like it's going to happen there, because it is a big, hairy thing. So getting started and really using the methodology can help organizations overcome that inertia. And that phrase, overcoming the inertia, I can't tell you how many times that's been the biggest challenge that the companies that have approached us, they've used that phrase more often than not.
Makes sense. So you founded Lima Consulting Group in 2004. What was on your path leading up to that? Like what kind of technology background have you got?
Oh, that's a good question. I fell into it for different times in my life, and so in 1989, I started West Point, and in June of 1989, and we were the second college in America to be wired. And so that semester, I was turning in my English papers in MS-DOS that I would write them uh, through the internet to my teachers. Uh, when I graduated and I minored in systems engineering and majored in economics, and then I went into the military where we were using the concept of digital transformation in the cavalry. I was a cavalry officer in Fort Lewis in Korea, a little time in Germany, and we really had a new situational awareness in our tanks with the satellites. And I remember in 1995 getting my plugger, which today we would call that a GPS. It was the size of a shoebox, and everybody had them. And we were able to see what we call on the battlefield situational awareness with little digital blue and red icons of where everybody was. That's digital transformation. Later, I went to SEI Investments, and I was involved in kind of stumbling on problems around just the way that we did our business and the way that we process things. And I started writing macros and was doing the work that took everybody else 8-9 hours to do in 30 minutes. Using some Excel macros. And then they said, hey, go do that with other people. Here's a budget. Go figure out how to become a business analyst. And over the 6 years I was there, I wound up developing and launching 6 products that were customer-facing products. And that's when I said, at that point, I had gone to the executive MBA program at Wharton. It was a management of technology kind of hybrid degree. And I said, maybe I can do this for a living. And so I went to my boss, my wife, and I collaborated with Venezia, and we said, let's give this a shot for a year. And here we are. We're going on, 15, 16 years.
That's crazy. I mean, getting to know you, none of that surprises me because you're one of those people who seems to think of the most of the eventualities in a situation. And I had a conversation with someone the other day about people involved with running technology companies usually don't have that skill. They tend to, well, it's like the show Silicon Valley. They're, great coders. They come up with great product ideas, but the reason they never make it anywhere is because they have zero management experience and they're not getting any better at it either as they go along. So they keep doing this and then this and then this and then this. And so it's no surprise to me, your business has grown and lasted as long, just based off of your analytical ability. So what would you say is currently your biggest challenge with your business?
Wow, I would say allocating constrained resources. I served when I was in at SEI, the firm that I was in when I moved to Pennsylvania and got out of the active army. I also was a reservist. And at a certain point, I was interested in continuing to work in cybersecurity. And that was in 2001. I got an opportunity to be part of I was the deputy commander for the first cyber warfare unit that we had in the Pentagon. It was a reserve unit. And so I got my first opportunity to go to a meeting where there were general officers, and I was just at the time a captain, so I wasn't even worthy to bring coffee to anybody. I remember the very first meeting and kind of saying, oh, well, what's the general officer's going to do? Where's the fire and brimstone or smoke that's going to be, breathed out of their mouth? And really, it was really, really boring. And what I noticed is, most of the time that the general officers were in the meetings, and generally for what we call a decision brief, to make a decision, there's a way that we do that in the military. And I recognize that the higher up I go in my career, the more time I'm going to spend allocating constrained resources. And that degree of focus, and that's what general officers do. That's why they call them generalists. That's why the term general is what it is. And I think as I grow, it's really working with my teams and evaluating opportunities and understanding where do we want to put our chips.
That totally makes sense as well. Important decisions to make. So, um, you had mentioned to me one day recently that you guys put out an ebook. Can you tell me about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that problem about overcoming inertia and the same problem that I talked about around allocating constrained resources is got to be the same challenge. And we know that from our market surveys that we do with those visionaries that are leading companies today that want to get started with a digital transformation that is more than let's just redo our website, right? And so the ebook, it's got a long title, but the gist of it is around helping a digital transformation leader get started to initiate their project and what they need to know in the first 90 days. And they can find the ebook at limaconsulting.com, and it's the center banner or hero image of our website.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, you had sent me a copy of it and I reviewed it and it's really well done.
Okay.
Then the other question I have for you is, where do you seem to continually have a stream of projects. Where do you tend to find those projects? Like what's usually the process you go through to land an engagement?
Yeah, a lot of it's just the content that we produce. One of our 5 values here at Lima is around continuous learning. And we love to be able to collaborate with other organizations, and in part what we're doing with you, Mike, and do research and be able to do webinars. And what we try to do is give away a lot of our learnings or a lot of our insights, templates. We just published another blog entry on how to create a persona and what that template ought to look like if you're just starting out. Or one we did a few weeks before that was how to use a digital balance scorecard and what that looks like. And we gave a template away for that. And really, it's, I guess, in a nutshell, it's content marketing and webinars and being able to demonstrate a little bit of value and hope that folks see that value and give us a call and give us a chance to be their trusted advisor.
That's awesome. So you're within your corporate structure, you have Lima Consulting Group. Is your approach to managing that business more formal or more relaxed and laid back?
It's different times and it's all situational dependent, but I think it's an extension of my personality as well. And so there are times where I need to be a little bit more formal. I have a Brazilian entity, Lima Consulting Group in Brazil. And there, just the way that business is conducted, it's much more disciplined in the way that we need to communicate with me living here and my team there. I have a subsidiary in Uruguay. We have resources in different countries in Latin America. And so it's a couple of dimensions there. One is understanding the market that you're in and responding with the culture of those markets without passing any judgment, right? And then the other is just using the leadership style that works for you. And I think for me, I'm really enjoy the pushback that a lot of my staff will give me when we have an idea or an initiative, and anybody's able to come in. If we had an open door policy in our virtual context today, I think that's used and invoked pretty frequently, where folks are able to back channel and say, hey, I'd love to be able to try this initiative. I had one person just reach out to me the other day and say, hey, they wanted to start a blog on the training program that they're starting. And, absolutely. So what that allows us to do is just be a lot more agile and respond to the interests that our staff has and our contractors have, and really invest in their growth in the way that makes sense for them.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed about your company is you're very supportive of the growth of the people that work with you. I mean, for me, in our business, we have 15 employees, and what we try to do is at the management level, we keep things pretty formal. We have a monthly meeting where we go over all of our what we call our vital factors, and they basically tell us, is our business going in the direction we expect it to go in? But also when we make decisions about things, we look and see how does that affect our vital factors, because that they've been chosen for a reason, and if they're going to negatively affect the vital factors, clearly we don't want to do that. But on the other hand, like you say, we have an open door policy. We let our people make any suggestions that they want to make, and sometimes we're against it for whatever reason, sometimes we're 100% for it, and other times we'll say, hey, let's try it and see what happens. We can always do something different later if we have to. So I love that attitude that you have, and your willingness to listen to what other people have to say, because I personally think in most technology companies they get so focused on the next project or whatever product they're going to build that they forget that other people might have a better way of doing things. And it doesn't hurt to listen. Doesn't mean you have to do what they said, but at least you listen, and I think that's a key to success. And that's one of the things we try to explore on the Technology Alchemist is, how are people becoming successful? So one of the things I wanted to ask you is, right now, obviously, we're both on somewhat of a lockdown situation because of this coronavirus pandemic. Do you have any advice for people on how to deal with their business during the pandemic? And then, I guess we can term after the lockdown is over, after the pandemic.
Yeah, I think I have three thoughts, right? Solve problems, create values, and invest in yourself. So, um, you know, it's one thing to say we build websites or we do digital analytics. It's another to say, um, in solving problems, we can help get a restaurant to get on Uber Eats in 90 minutes, right? And oh, that's a website? Well, yeah, it's actually taking what's on your menu from your website and dropping it into Uber Eats. So, that's a problem as opposed to a capability where it's about me and my company versus going into an organization to solve a problem. Creating value. And in creating value, it means I understand your problem. I feel your pain. I have empathy. I have an understanding of what you're going through. And then being able to create the first part of solving a problem in the context of the pain that your customer is experiencing. And then the third one is, hey, for a lot of organizations, Paul, that's great. We can't do that. We don't have a way to solve a problem or create value based on what we do. If you're a moving company, what are you going to do? So in that case, invest in yourself. Do you need, when this comes out, when we start leaving our homes again and going back to work and resuming, I mean, you hesitant to call it normal life, but afterwards, are you working on your marketing and tuning up your positioning? And is there a training that you can do? So one of the things that we have been looking at, and I've been getting a lot of phone calls from my friends and just other organizations that are laying off folks in my industry, and people calling up asking for advice, asking if I've got positions. And we're very well staffed right now, but we're always looking for folks that are interested in investing in themselves. And one of the things that we're doing at Lima is through our relationship with Adobe, we're gold partners. And what that means is that anybody who's affiliated with Lima, even on a small contract that just says that they're willing to work training, not to get paid, but just that they're one of our affiliates that wants to get trained, we'll give them a small contract. And one of the things I wanted to open up to your listeners, Mike, was anybody that would like to get trained on any Adobe marketing product, we can provide that training to them for free.
Oh, that's such a nice thing. That's a very nice thing. But again, doesn't surprise me. The more I've gotten to know you over the years, the less things like that surprise me. It's one of the reasons why I think we get along so well, because I've been preaching to my coaching clients that, like you said, it's funny because I would have said the exact same three things that you said. And I think that the main thing is helping other people, being willing to help other people. And I think the only thing that people can learn from this thing, in the situation they're in now, it's kind of like you can't cry over spilt milk. Well, most of us don't do a good job of building and maintaining a network of connections. And it's in a time like this, like I heard you say, you have people calling you and seeing if you have positions available. That's because they've got a network with you in it, and they can reach out to you. But if they hadn't maintained that friendship and that that connection, who do they reach out to in a time like this? Everybody seems to think everyone's hurting, but that's not really true, right? Like there's businesses that are doing just okay, and there's others that are actually flourishing, and then there's those that are floundering. And I think that being willing to keep those connections going is probably the fourth thing I would add, is just make sure that you, if you haven't done it already, start fostering those connections. I mean, one of the things I started doing a few months ago was just, it's kind of an interesting concept. Like you take your phone and you open up your text message app and scroll all the way to the bottom, and then find the bottom four people and send them a message and say, hey, I haven't talked to you in a long time. How's it going? Because by doing that, you're reminding them that you're thinking about them, but also you're keeping that connection alive. And yeah, you'll have a conversation, and it's the typical thing that drops off after a week, and then eventually, though, they're going to wind up back at the bottom of your list. And if you do this every day, eventually you're going to connect to them again. So I love that, especially the moving company example, because training is something that we all complain all the time that we don't have time to do. And I don't personally believe that. I think if someone were to cut back on like television watching or whatever, they'd find an hour somewhere to train, right? But
Yeah.
now a lot of people are at home doing nothing, literally doing nothing. I read something yesterday that said during this pandemic, Americans are averaging 8 hours of streaming a day. Take like a quarter of that every day and study something, and you'll be amazed on the other side what you're going to have, right? And I know that's a foundation that you have is I mean, that's how we ended up meeting face to face, is training. It's a big thing. You really believe in that. So what have you found are like the three essential things that you look for in somebody in order to say, hey, I want to send that person to a training class to help them out a little bit?
Oh yeah. Well, I do have the three things that we generally look at here at Lima in terms of the consultants that we know that are going to be successful in our culture. The first is that just really hardworking and no ego with related to that work, right? So we don't know what work is going to come to us once we get on site. I mean, we generally know what's going to be in a box, but hardworking and willing to really, when the task comes out and open up Microsoft Word or Excel or get on the phone and dig up the answers or do the research. So no ego and hard work. So that's the first. The second is really entrepreneurial thinking, right? So in the way that they solve problems, there's this mindset that says that it's a growth mindset, that we can solve the problem. Sometimes that's a detriment too, because sometimes there are problems that shouldn't be solved, right? You need to walk away from them. But for the most part, it's an engineering orientation that says, I can do this, we can figure this out, we're optimistic, we're going to eat this elephant one bite at a time. So that's the entrepreneurial mindset, the growth mindset. And the third one is just really smart. And I don't mean where you went to school, and I don't mean what your GPA was or what your SAT score was. I mean, if you're smart because of the questions you ask. Are you really curious? Are you always looking for, in your spare time, are you reading blogs and reading books and looking at materials and sharing that in a collaborative way that demonstrates to yourself and to your customers and to the team here that you're invested in your growth, right? And if you do that, you will be smart, right? And many times being smart doesn't mean that you're asking the best questions, but what it means is that you have this relentless curiosity. And with that curiosity, just given the pace of innovation and the accelerating nature of the data collecting and how many new technologies are becoming exponential and the breadth and scope of the speed of accelerating technologies, you're going to stay current. And if you do that in a disciplined way, you'll be a great consultant.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Well, I really appreciate all of your insight, and thanks for being on the show. Why don't you tell people where they can find you? Whatever contact information you want to give out, go for it.
You bet. Yeah. So start out with limaconsulting.com. On our website, we've got a blog. We've got some of the ebooks and some of the materials I mentioned earlier. You can certainly write me at plima@limaconsulting.com. My name is Paul Lima, so plima@limaconsulting.com. And if you have an interest in getting certified in any of the Adobe products, we can make that happen for you and just sign you up for the on-demand video training. And you can go become an Adobe Analytics business practitioner or a Marketo developer or whatever in the Adobe Marketing Cloud in that particular category of software.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being on the show. For those of you listening, thanks for listening to the Technology Alchemist. You can find the audio version of this at yogispodcastnetwork.com/TTA show. Or you can look us up on YouTube. The channel's Your Virtual CTO. Feel free to subscribe because there's going to be lots more like this. It's a weekly show. And so we'll see you again next week.